From the College by the Lake, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Local, regional, national, and international guests discussing the issues and topics affecting the way you live are on Forum, the North Idaho College Public Forum, with your host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart.
Our topic for today's discussion deals with prison camps during World War II or concentration camps, and although you've heard much about this in history, we are able today to bring you an eyewitness and also a person who actually was in prison 3 times during World War II. Our guest is a native of Poland. We welcome to our program Lou Gomiski, who is now a resident of our city of Coeur d'Alene, and we're very pleased to welcome you to our program, and thank you for taking this time to tell your story about what happened to you in relation to the Germans and the Russians during World War II. And to interview you today, I have 2 panel members. First of all is Janelle Berg, who is an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Steve Sheen, who is the Vice President for College Relations and Development at North Idaho College, and we will start today's questioning with you, our guest, with Janelle Berg.
In recent times, there's been a great deal of interest about World War II and what was going on during that time. You were a cadet officer in the Polish Army at that time, and can you tell us, you were in a prison camp 3 different times. Can you tell us what those 3 times were and just a little bit about the circumstances?
Well, first time I was captured by Russian troops when they invaded Poland. Because
so that time you were in a Russian camp, a Russian prisoner camp.
Yes. Russians, they put me in the camp, and they said, well, tomorrow you will be free, going to free. Sign, where do you want to go? I said, Warsaw. They said, Warszawa будет тоже наша. Warsaw also will be ours. So they put ours, and next day, come on, you are going home to the transport.
And where did you end up?
So they took us to the railroad station, and I saw it's a goods wagons, I just looked in the windows, barbed wires. I said, my gosh, that's not the way to going home with barbed wires. They are Soviet soldiers with guns, every few wagons, and put about 20 to such a 16 tons goods wagons before they took everything, any metals. They cut it off, even metal buttons, Took to the bar and went close outside, went east.
And you ended up near the Arctic Circle?
Well, that's a long way to Arctic. Let me go quickly how it's happened. When trains stop close to Polish-Soviet border, one of our guys have a little pocket knives which they couldn't find. And there is, when there is a lock from outside, from shrapnel, this wood was little damage. And during the traveling, he has with his knife cutting, and when train stopped, he just lifted up and opened the door. So everybody outside. Meanwhile, on the front, the same happened, that somebody opened the door and so on. And everybody went out. There was flat ground, and 2 of us under, and there was a big slope, maybe 50 feet. We dived. I was in excellent condition, We dive and run, we hurt. Afterwards, maybe we've been 100, 200 feet. Come back, shouting, bunk, bunk, but been running maybe 3 kilometers, to the village. Some asked ladies, because I wanted to change military uniform. Mm-hmm. And ladies, she said, go behind, there is a veteran. Behind the city, there is a veteran living, and I am sure he will change you. So we found the veteran, he gave me civilian coat, I gave him my military. And next day, I was going to buy some bread. Early morning, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning, going to bread. From the corner, see my oldest brother coming, walking. Hey, my gosh, what are you? He was working in an ammunition and weapons factory, which was evacuated, So we together, stayed and traveled slowly when mostly military transport was going, but occasionally there was civilian transport, so we've been going towards the demarcation line, wanted to go home near Warsaw,
We're talking about Warsaw, Poland.
Yes.
You're trying to make your way back.
Yes, right. And we finally stopped close to demarcation line in a city called Brest. It's in Russian Brest-Litovsk, they call it. Now, we stopped there and waiting to cross demarcation line. But one day they announced Russians arrested 1,000 people. Oh my gosh, so they were mostly from people from outside. My gosh, so speed it up. Next day we went with a fellow who was living in last village next to the demarcation line, and we arranged, paid him, he brought us to the demarcation line.
We're going to have to interrupt and get to we're already almost halfway through the program. We need to get to the second one. Steve, you take us to the next step.
Well, Mr. Damansky, I wonder if we could have you kind of move forward in time and tell us a little bit about your experience with the British Air Force. How is it that you came to join the Air Force and be trained by the British and start flying missions for them?
I have to still go. Anyway, I was caught crossing the demarcation line. I was caught, put in jail. 1 year, after 1 year, I received a 3-year sentence, and they sent me north of Arctic Circle to Vorkuta, coal mines. We came to last railway stop, marching on frozen rivers, there. And thanks to the Germans, when Germans attacked Soviet Union, so just overnight, we become Russian friends. So our exile government, which was in London, arranged with Stalin, they released 100,000 fighting forces, 50,000 civilians. And I always wanted to fly, so I joined the group, Air Force group, And Air Force has priority go to Great Britain because there was a shortage of it. So from Arctic area, we crossed whole Soviet Union, came to Iran, which was northern part was occupied by Russians, southern by British. We came there. They burned everything, because when I was 2 years in Soviet Union, always fighting with lice, plenty, because disinfection wasn't the greatest. Anyway, afterwards, we just reconditioned ourselves through India, South Africa, Cape Town, on New Zealand ship Avatia 14,000 tons, single ship. We went across Atlantic avoiding these U-boats, came to Scotland. They've been short of personnel, manpower. So, since I was expert on mortars, machine guns, so I've been operating Oerlikons, guns, you know, sitting. Anyway, so when we came to Great Britain, they've been 3 members of intelligence service, 2 captains and major, you know, came and so they told me, cadet officer, take a platoon, you will be interviewed by British intelligence officers. Okay, so it just came, interpreter was reported, you know. So they start asking, you know, questions, where have you been, in what concentration camp, what you've been doing, and so on. And afterwards, so everybody answered. Afterwards he said, now, could you tell us how long have you been in anti-Soviet indoctrination course? I wish our British boys look half as good as you are looking. Because we've been in Iran, well-fed, sun, lot of soccer, everybody looked like hell sample. And he said, stop lying, get out. Okay, so get out. I found out that there's a great shortage of navigators. Because navigators, they have to study a little more and so on. Everybody wants to be pilot. So one officer, you know, after operation flights, he said, if you want to go into actions as fast as possible, join the navigation. So I have priority, you know. So when they interview me, what specialty did you choose? I said, navigation. They look at each other. Say, everybody wants to be pilot, and here is navigator.
Mr. Damaski, what training did you have in Poland that qualified you to be a navigator? What was your educational background?
No, there is no. This is in Great Britain.
I understand, but when you were still in Poland,
I was in Poland in a cadet officer of infantry. I joined in Soviet Union.
But did you go to what we would call college, or did you have any formal education before you got into the Polish military?
Yes, in Poland there was compulsory service after finishing high school or higher, or when you reach conscription age, you know, they've been taking you to cadet officer schools, you know.
Okay, so you did have an educational background.
Yes.
How long did it take them to train you to be a navigator?
Well, it took me about 2 years to be navigator.
And at this point, where would the war be? What year are we in now, after that 2 years of training in Britain to be a navigator?
Started at the end, 1943. First on Wellington 2-engine bomber, mining of Heligoland U-boat base. That's first. We dropped their mines. And soon afterwards, they went through so-called heavy conversion unit on 4-engine bombers, Halifaxes and Lancaster.
Which are both British planes.
Yes, British planes. And afterwards, crew, we made this. Since I was lucky because all crew was going into second tour of duty, I was only navigator. So this was everything cut, you know, only navigation. Infrared bombings, you know, and so on. Even before Christmas, still we have to go fly somewhere to Irish Sea or something, island, you know, bombing. And they said, hey, Lou, it's a Christmas time. Hell, why do we have to waste time? Make it short. So we made it short, few hours, pressed, bombs gone. We landed, everybody happy. They announced Results. I was second. All bombs in the target except one. So, anyway, after training, they sent us to special duty squadron, which was in southern Italy, in Brindisi, south opposite Albania. So we flown with whole ground crew and crew, flown to Rabat Saleh, Northwest Africa, and Tunis. And we came to Brindisi, landed and started operational flights. I finished tour of duty, which consisted of 300 operational hours. I was quite lucky. We finished, and I thought,
300 hours, and how many missions, how many flights would that have been? Do you have any idea?
This was 300 hours, so this was long flights. It was somewhere like something like a 45 operational flights.
Do you have any recollection? An awful high percentage of British air crews never made it through their tour of duty.
Yes.
They were shot down before they finished.
My squadron was that unlucky squadron. They lost 300% within 2 months. We've been flying.
Now we probably need to explain that to people. Obviously, they say 300%. How could you do that? Includes replacements. If they had 10 planes, they might have replaced them 3 times to get to that 300% that you're talking about. So you were one of the lucky ones that there were a lot of replacement planes and crews that came in and were shot down, and they'd bring in another crew. It was shot down, but you made it through the whole tour.
Some crews been coming with suitcases, they put names and so on, went one flight and never came back, So anyway, after finishing one tour of duty, I thought, oh my gosh, war soon will be finished, and I didn't contribute enough, so I signed for second tour of duty under condition that next Liberator, which was American, designed for long distances, because Halifax has been this British 4 engines, they've been designed for medium distances, and we like flying to Poland and back, so it was between 10-12 hours, So we have always extra tanks and so on. So I signed for second tour of duty under condition that next free Liberator will be for my crew. Squadron commander, he said, yes, fine. Meanwhile, you have to fly Halifaxes until next free Liberator crew will finish duty, and will leave. So, okay, so started to fly Halifaxes with another crew. Warsaw Uprising started. We've been close to the Warsaw. Met people, they said, over Poland, fog will start forming after midnight. So we've been rushing, We have this target near Warsaw, We are just coming, and 2 minutes before target, white covered, completely. So we made a turn, secondary target, which was southern Poland, somewhere maybe 100 miles south of Warsaw. There's still little patches been forming, but target sent a signal, target answered, we lowered to about 500 feet over the ground, so they wouldn't be seen far away when you drop supply, went over Tatra mountains, to highest point. Already we've been in clouds, entering clouds. Clouds get darker when you're passing Tatra. And clouds all the time up to over Hungary start little breaking. And we've been going, and I saw Tisa River, which goes from Balkans east of Budapest, So I saw Tisa, but couldn't figure out because under a sharp angle we've been approaching, And finally we get fire. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Artillery, so we call, well, service pinpoint. That's city of, I think, Szolnok. Yeah, city of Szolnok, near firing. So we went round, tank and rear gunner. He said, oh, gee, behind us, they are shelling another plane. I believe this was already night fighter directing behind us. So we straightened, I give a new course, and pilot, he said, okay, take, and suddenly, plane shook up, I just on microphone ask, silence. I just look on, because I have panel of instruments, all instruments standing still, except speed, start dropping. My gosh, if there's no speed, parachute, quickly, parachute. Meanwhile, my pilot already was coming because escape hatch was under navigation table in front. So table up, and he hit me on the plane, open, fire under, flames. My gosh, but I was in much better position because I just make for security this opening parachute with second hand, head between the legs. He pushed me, I went into flames, blinded for a second, and after was quiet and dark. So then I pull it, give a good jerk, and parachute shirt. So I just put my fingers, to release this leg. And they was swinging on this. I was watching, River Tisa, so I wouldn't fall into water. But Tisa was, and suddenly Tisa River going fast. So I realized I am close to the ground. Put legs together here and smell the grass. I said, my gosh, how nice, And afterwards, parachute, put a parachute under the bush. I didn't have anything, so I broke some branch. It was, I realized this was acacia tree, because it have little spikes, Dig little hole under this bush, put my saver, pushed under that.
Did you have any idea where the rest of your crew was?
No,
lost contact
absolutely.
with all?
No, I just when I bail out, I just look at plane. Plane was turning left and start going down. Woo! Explosions. Dogs start barking all over,
We're running short on time.
Churches.
Yeah. Can I ask you one thing, because we're going to be out of time in a minute, for our viewers so they don't get left like this. Was it this time when you bailed out, did you also become a prisoner again this time, did you?
Yes.
Who captured you this time?
Hungarian police. Poles and Hungarians historically been very friendly. So when I was laying, I heard far away voices coming closer, because I was laying cover myself under pumpkin, And finally, I heard voice, Hände hoch, And so I just look, black uniform with such a feather, Hungarian policeman, standing with a gun pointed. Other policeman was checking me, and afterwards he said, He asked, Ango? English? In Hungarian? I said, no, Polish. Oh, Lender! My gosh, I feel like prisoner doing French. Oh, Lender, come on. They grabbed me under arms, you know.
They took you to prison then, did they?
Oh, yeah, they took me to the city of Santos, to the military, to the city hall.
And this was the third time you became a prisoner?
Yeah, to the city hall. They took me, and afterwards, they took me out, put me in the car. They brought me to where rest of my crew, except two. We wanted to talk, but they've been standing, guys. No.
We're just got a minute left.
Yeah.
And when did you get out of prison this time? What liberated you? Was it the end of the war?
Yes. I was sitting after 1 year in jail in Budapest. They sent me to Sagan, Stalag Luftwaffe 3. Now it's called Żegań in Poland, So I was sitting there until Russian Soviet troops, so they evacuated us near Hamburg. When Western offensive came, so we've been marching, maybe 200 miles close up to Lübeck.
I have 30 seconds. Who liberated you then? What forces?
British.
The British liberated you.
British liberators. I have their signatures,
Yes.
This liberators, those guys,
Well, you are one of the few people, I believe, that one could meet that was a prisoner 3 times, survived all 3 prison times, and survived a plane crash. You are very, very much to be commended for all your bravery. I'm out of time. I wish we had more time. Maybe we can have you back in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us.
Really
On behalf of the panelist staff, we thank you very much, and we're glad you're in America. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fascinating story about 3 different times that a person was a prisoner and escaped and was able to survive World War II. I know you found this most interesting, and we'd like to invite you to come back and be with us again next week when we'll discuss another subject, and I'm sure you'll find it interesting also. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum was videotaped live from the studios of Instructional Technology on the campus of North Idaho College for viewing at this more appropriate time. We invite you to join us again next week for another all-new edition of the North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.